gentlemen, welcome here and good morning to all of you, wherever you may be and however you may be watching and listening to me today. We are live in Las Vegas. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, and your home is the Spotlight Sports Network, where you can find all of our contents. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is where you can like and follow all social media platforms. We post on a daily of everything sports. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channels of the Snake Sports Talk Show and the Spotlight Sports Network. Hit the like, hit the bell button for all the latest notifications on future shows. Even also play-by-play reactions and highlights, and of course, more in-depth analysis from your favorite network that's got you covered in sports. And follow us on Spotify. We're live all today, this morning. We're live on Twitch, we're live on YouTube, and we're also live on Periscope, Twitter, and Facebook Live. Love being here with you guys. Appreciate you all jumping on. I've got a stacked show this morning. I've got an absolute stacked show. What's going on? Key is in the building. Make sure that you subscribe and check out her content. She is everything Philadelphia sports. Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, you name it. She's got you all covered. And she's also been covering a little bit more on the WNBA. We've had the finals go on, game one. Also, we've got Major League Baseball, postseason. We're finally here. And by the way, before I start the show, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning in their Stanley Cup Finals championship. It was well fought, and it was well earned and deserved. And this is a team that really, they came in, I anticipated it. They were coming in with the chip on their shoulder, and they got the job done. They proved all the doubters wrong. And John Cooper, the head coach, gets his first Stanley Cup championship. And congratulations to all of them. All the players fought hard, and they played well. Plus, we've got NBA Finals, Lakers and Heat. So I want to start with this, because right now, you're already looking at the NBA Finals. And my feeling is, and the way that I see this kind of rolling, I wouldn't be surprised if the Los Angeles Lakers swept the Miami Heat. Let me just give you a few things, because we talked about this last weekend. LeBron James, at his absolute finest, is the one catalyst that when it comes to playoffs, not to mention when it comes to the finals, hey, what's going on, Butcher Block? Definitely check out his content. He is big on Boston everything. My good friend Bobby there. It's really interesting how we see how LeBron works his magic and how he works, how he really thrives his power with everybody. And the ones that join him, Anthony Davis, they all thrive with LeBron. And the way that I'm looking at this in the series, and I've said it before, Jimmy Butler has separated himself from all other young talents and all other young players. Who do I mean by that? Well, he separates himself from Kawhi. He separates himself from Chris Paul. And he separates himself from Russell Westbrook and James Harden. And Jimmy Butler came on to a Miami team. And by the way, Eric Spoelstra is not a terrible coach. Spoelstra, outside of Brad Stevens, I think is probably one of the best coaches you could really take on. Now, the group is young. We know that. Bam Adebayo gets hurt early, but he still has a lot of development. Kendrick Nunn, potential rookie of the year, but he still has a lot to improve in his game as well. And then you also look at the rest of the crew. Tyler Hero, young shooter. He still has a lot more growth in him. He still has to go through the growth process. There are a lot of kids in this organization that I guarantee you, this is a learning experience for them. But the way that I see this, and a lot of people have told me, This may be a potential sweep. It may be going to game 5. My gut feeling is it may go to 5, may go to 6. But if more injuries and more unfortunate events happen for the Miami Heat, it's going to be a sweep. It's going to be a sweep. You're not getting past LeBron. You're not getting past Anthony Davis. I mean, it's hard enough to guard both of them when they're on the same floor. Not to mention, you have a lot of real good role players. And again, underestimating this type of group, because even having LeBron and Anthony Davis, my biggest concern was how the bench was going to favor Alex Caruso. I mean, he's got a little bit more growth he has to go through just to be an elite shooter, whether he's starting or he's on the bench. Rajon Rondo, old school, been there, won a championship with the Celtics. He understands what's at stake. And this is a team that's filled with veterans. And I think people realize this, that since the shutdown, all the veterans have gotten healthy, whether they were coming off of injuries, they took some time off, they refocused, reshaped their game, and they're playing to the absolute extent. And look at all the veterans you have: LeBron, Anthony Davis, Jared Dudley, Rajon Rondo, Dwight Howard. You have a lot of veterans on this team that they're all playing by their roles. And they're on a mission. Absolutely. And the both of them. And here's the thing. The Lakers have been on a mission since the passing of Kobe Bryant and Gigi Bryant. They've been on a mission since then. I mean, I question this team, and they did have a hot start to the start of this year. I mean, they were basically running through everybody in the West. But remember one thing, and I've had multiple conversations with my colleagues and with a lot of really good friends of mine who think like I do. But the thing of it is, when you look at how the Lakers and their pathway, understand they're not playing the Clippers. Kawhi, not in the championship against the Lakers, because the Clippers was causing them so many problems. But then eventually, the Clippers were the one team that did not benefit as well in the bubble. And it clearly showed against Denver. The other thing of it is, you were dealing with Houston, who are the shortest team in the NBA. Not sure what to expect for the Rockets for the next couple of years, but they just didn't get anything working. And again, when you take on a Russell Westbrook contract, you should already understand and know what you're getting into. And finally, I mean, Damian Lillard got hurt and he was out for the rest of the playoffs. So they were without, Portland was out without their point guard. They were without him, and they had to end up playing to the best of their extent, and they couldn't get it done. They couldn't get it done. I would have anticipated it would have been a fun series, would have been a long series, because I wasn't sure exactly how the Lakers would have favored out. But it just tells you so much about the Lakers and where they're headed. I mean, they're on a mission to win this year. And it looks like it's a pathway for the Lakers to win a championship. LeBron would then win his 4th title. And this is his 5th head coach that he's gone through. Now, I know a lot of people would have back and forth conversations about between LeBron and Michael Jordan. I'm not getting into that conversation only because Michael was able to do it with one coach, but he also did it with a grand cast that helped him get to the finals, helped him beat Detroit, and so much more. Yeah, and that's exactly it. You know, there was a spark up for the Lakers, and that's why that they're in the position that they are in. And yeah, all these matchups, these were all in favor for the Lakers to win it. That's the way that it's shaped up. I'm not saying this is an easy road, but if you think about it, like I always do believe in destinies all the time and different pathways that when it's built for you and you go about it, who knows where that pathway takes you? It may take you to a championship. It may take you to a great business opportunity. It may take you anywhere in life. And that's the way that I see this with LeBron, Anthony Davis, and the Lakers. This is a pathway that they went through, and they're definitely striving. All right. I can tell you right now, the NFL season has been exciting to watch. And it's been very, very interesting all the way through. We're having so many stories. And I speculated that Thursday night game. And I'm really surprised that the Jets did not go about their ways and part ways with Adam Gase. I really didn't. Let me just tell you something. And it's not only just about the Jets, but it's about the state of New York as a whole. New York, to be honest, I mean, let me say that all throughout the last couple of years, there's been a coastal change. Okay, years ago, the East Coast. Now, this is not including, Boston or, all the East Coast, like, Southern East Coast. It's not going to include Boston because Boston, of course, had their own thing. But when I look at New York, as of right now, things have changed since then. Lots and lots of superstars. Almost all the superstars in the NBA moved west. In baseball, a lot of players moved west. Hockey kind of is, it's a various streetway. Anybody can go anywhere. Midwest, they could probably go up north Canada or down south. However, whichever the way paves for them. Then you look at the NFL. And the NFL, there are a lot of players moving west. They're all moving in within like AFC, close to like the NFC West divisions, region. And that's it. But the New York Jets, and this is what's a sad thing. And it's not only just them, but it's even the Giants. The Jets and the Giants right now look like the sorriest teams in their organizations. They do. And listen, I've visited New York multiple times. I have family that live up over there. My grandparents, my aunts, my uncle. And here's the thing. New York has changed so much. It has. Think about it. The Giants, since their championship with Tom Coughlin, they have not looked like the same team. They went through Ben McAdoo. They went through Pat Shurmur, and here we are with Joe Judge. They look like the sorriest team in the NFL. The Jets had a really good competitive team, but then eventually lost it. And this is post Rex Ryan. Everything went down south. Potentialities. A lot of their young draft picks weren't even developing well. And here we are again with the Jets. The Knicks, you're just hoping that James Dolan sells the team because the Knicks have been dealing with a curse that it's been instilled for what feels like a millennia, but it's terrible. Yeah, and you even got Brooklyn Brooklyn, I think, may make the playoffs next year, but do I think it's going to be an easy road? Probably not. And then you got the Mets, who the Mets had, I anticipated, I thought the Mets would have made the postseason because they had real good pitching and they also had real good hitting, but it's still, they were missing links. They were missing a couple more components, and they were not the most competitive team. The Yankees can't get over their injury plagues. The Rangers, well, they ended an era with Henrik Lundqvist. There may be a few changes that'll be coming to this organization. They make it into the playoffs. Then you got the Islanders. It seems like the Rangers and Islanders are the only teams that are really benefiting in the state of New York. But one pointed out, the main reason is ownership. Those ownership groups are awful for both organizations. I agree, but look at it this way. Look at it this way. Majority of New York's ownership is awful. James Dolan, you go ahead and sell the Forum to the Clippers, but you won't sell the team. And the team has been a mess for years. The Giants, post Tom Coughlin, has not looked the same team. I don't know what seems to be happening with their organization. And then you got the Jets. What's going on, Owen? Glad you, hey, love it, man. Thank you so much for the love, man. Really do appreciate it. Hit the like, share it with your friends and family, man. Definitely shout out the Snake Sports Talk Show wherever you may be. I appreciate it, man. But it's terrible for the Jets. It's terrible for and I love Sam Darnold, but Adam Gase is not the answer in their coaching scheme to building Darnold's potential. It should be at 110%. Did you watch in that Thursday night game how many plays Sam Darnold made? I mean, the kid ran out of the pocket and ran for a touchdown. You cannot tell me Sam Darnold doesn't have potentials. He does. He just doesn't have the right. He just doesn't have the right coach. Either that, or maybe he doesn't have the right coordinator who makes it work. This is one of my problems with most of these New York organizations. And you wonder why a lot of people moved out west. You wonder why. Nobody was going to join the Knicks. The Knicks were a mess. Not a lot of people. Only some. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and a couple players. They were the ones joining Brooklyn. But Brooklyn is an organization who they've had histories where they weren't the most competitive team. They were years ago, probably when they were in Jersey, but the second you come into Brooklyn, I mean, you had Darren Williams, you had Kevin Garnett, but these are also guys that are past their primes. And Brooklyn, they're questionable. The Mets, they just can't seem to get the right components. Yankees, maybe they don't have the right medical staff because everybody's getting hurt. Everybody's getting hurt. And it's just, I don't know what to think about it. I mean, look, the state of New York, to me, I always considered it a tourist destination because I love going out there. I love walking around Times Square. I love walking around, Montauk and little bits of upstate like Cooperstown and a lot of places. Oh, yeah. Hey, what's going on, Malguli? If you guys want to check out, if you guys are diehard wrestling fans, and also my colleague here, he's a diehard Chicago everything. Loves the Bears, love the Bulls. Definitely subscribe to him. Give him some love there on his channel at Malguli. He's always in the Ghoulie zone as he is this morning. Yeah, that's right, Bobby. He single-handedly kept the Jets from getting blown out. But that's the thing. That's the potentialities of certain players. So New York has a serious problem because why would the West Coast thrive the way they do? Why would Los Angeles now be the big destination? Or better yet, why would Vegas be the big-time destination? Because somewhere there's a lot of potentiality, and a lot of them are championship-driven. You can even look at some of them from the Midwest and maybe some that are down south in the East Coast. But after all that, it's not looking good. We're going to take a small break, but coming up next, I've got a really good guest of mine. And I've interviewed him. He was my first ever interview. Just about a year ago. I had not been able to do something like this with him in a long time. And I'm super excited about it. We're going to be talking so much NFL talks and, of course, what to expect. It's my good friend Jimmy Maverick as well when we come back. Also, my favorite time of the year, at the bottom end of the hour, I've got my prime predictions coming up. You don't want to miss that Snake Sports Talk Show. All righty, ladies and gentlemen. Also, just to give you all a heads up, if you guys are looking for merchandise and you guys are looking to rep your favorite hit show on the Spotlight Sports Network, that is the Snake Sports Talk Show, definitely go on to our website at spotlightsportsnetwork.com. Go on to the merch section, buy your t-shirts, buy your hats, buy your masks. We got it all. Definitely rep your merch, rep your gear. We'd love to see pictures of you guys and showing your full support. And definitely like and subscribe to all of our YouTube channels as well. So, like I said before we went into break, I interviewed this man a year ago. He was my first ever interview. And it was fun. Like, this was just the start of this show beginning. And now it's kind of come to, a point where it has been built. It's been now thriving very well. And man, I am excited to do this again. And to me, I look at it, I'm like, why couldn't I have done this sooner? But I'm just very glad to introduce my real good friend of mine here joining me on the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard. It is Jimmy Maverick. Jimmy, you know that you're my go-to fantasy football expert when I'm needing some help on some certain players and so much more. But man, it's been such a long time. How are things been going with you out there?
Well, it's been going good, and holy cow, what a crazy fantasy season we've had so far. It is... it's just unbelievable. I just have to say, where's the defense? Where'd the defense go this year? There's like no defense happening out there. Week 3, there was 41 players that scored over 20 points. 41. That is crazy. And we had 10 players score over 30 points. I have just been nuts. Going bonkers. I'm in the situation where I will score like 165 points and lose. I'm like, how does that happen?
Oh my Lord. Yeah, I'm right there with you on that same boat. I mean, it's been incredible. I mean, a part of it, I mean, you could kind of think of just the rule changes with the NFL because now it's becoming so offensive centric that, a lot of these quarterbacks, wide receivers now are all kind of producing at their ends, and kind of something to even get into here as we start. But yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I played on Yahoo. I'm playing currently with my network's team on ESPN, and I'm right there with you. I mean, God, Russell Wilson, week after week after week, putting up 30 to 50 points every week. It's like, this is what happens when Seattle lets Russ cook. He makes it happen. But let's get it started from here. So my big question to you is, and I went very skeptical about this year with one player in particular, and that's Cam Newton. You and I both know when we've watched him for years in Carolina, there were so many inconsistencies, and this was post 2015 Super Bowl run that unfortunately they lost to Denver. But I don't know about you, but I'm liking what I'm seeing. I feel like Cam Newton, in all of his career, needed Belichick, needed structure, somewhere that was going to help him to produce. In your thoughts, what has impressed you about Cam Newton, just looking by the fantasy numbers and how he's really produced this year?
Well, I think the thing that really shocked me was in week 2 when he threw for like 450 yards. I did not think he had that in him, especially with the receiving talent on the Patriots. That was like a shock. But Belichick has a history of bringing in people that are supposedly past their prime on in the sunset of their careers, and they have an explosive season. And I do not have any shares of Cam Newton. I did not target him at all in my drafts, because I was concerned about his ability to be an effective rusher at age 31, as well as just his typical issues with his arm. And boy, I tell you what, I'm regretting it, because he has certainly shown that he still can do both. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny is that, and knowing Belichick for as long as he's coached in this league, and post 20 years of Tom Brady, the one thing that, and I'll argue, like Belichick had been waiting for an opportunity like this for years, and think about it this way. Outside of Tom Brady, who mostly started for New England, you had Matt Castle one year. His completion percentage was close to 70. And so he'll bring these quarterbacks in and just basically tell you, just don't make any mistakes. Play your role, and let's score points. Let's at least get our leads. He's done that with Castle. He's done that with Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's even done that with Jacoby Brissett. So it's like no matter what young quarterback comes into this system, he's going to help them to restructure them and help them thrive. That's what I think what's been very surprising about Cam Newton. And here's the other thing. You've got N'Keal Harry, like a rookie wide receiver we didn't know so much about. He's clicking. And then you have, obviously, Julian Edelman as the veteran receiver, but you have all these young receivers, and it's like they're working under Belichick. Is there kind of something you see with Belichick's coaching schemes that really just kind of makes this work for New England? Because I'll be honest, I'm the person that I underestimated New England. I did not see this type of performance coming from them just to start this season. What were your thoughts on Belichick with his coaching scheme?
Well, you knew he was going to field an excellent team because he always does, but I thought it was going to be a team that would be dominated by the defense, and they'd bring Cam in just as a game manager, someone, you just don't turn the ball over, low scoring, and we'll win games. But it hasn't been that at all. They've been able to produce. Now, this week, they got a big test against Kansas City. We'll see what happens in this game because Kansas City's playing at a very high level, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And will Belichick be able to handle that? I don't think he will. But I could still see this team going 11 or 12 wins this season. Easy. It's no doubt that they will be a playoff team, so that's. But that Belichick always does this. He's the best coach in the NFL. He's I call him an evil genius because he is. He's just,
yeah.
I don't know how he does it, but he can completely change the play of the game from one week to the other to suit what they need to do to beat the team that they're facing. It's just you don't want to bet against that because you'll lose. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. But I'm sorry. By the way, can one of my moderators please modify this as well, because this here cannot possibly happen. This is that. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of spamming right there. That is a lot of spamming. So sorry about that. Yeah, absolutely. I look at Belichick right now. There is no stopping his type of coaching method and how he's the type of coach that, like, when it comes to certain teams, he'll know exactly how to pick them apart. And that's honestly what the type of coach that he definitely is. Jimmy Maverick here on the Spotlight or on the Snake Sports Talk Show. So looking at young quarterbacks, Joe Burrow, we've seen this was my biggest thing. I like what I'm seeing out of Joe Burrow this year. Now, the unfortunate part is you think about Cincinnati as an organization, they still need some key components. I do think that this offensive line is young, it's inexperienced, and they really need to shape themselves up. But Joe Burrow throughout some of these games, I look at that Cleveland game, throwing 3 touchdowns, no picks. The kid shows you what he's capable of. But eventually Cincinnati needs to make this work. And that's where I think they'll evaluate it probably closer to next year. Justin Herbert, an unfortunate event with Tyrod Taylor and his injury. He comes in and, man, the kid's been playing really, really good. I don't know about you, but I felt like that play, if the lateral worked, they would have scored that touchdown. It would have been ball game. They would have made a miraculous win over Carolina. I'm noticing a lot of these young quarterbacks, Jimmy, that they are producing at their highest extent, and it's coming by fast. Now, I don't want to over anticipate because of the fact that we have no preseason, we had no OTAs this year, but going by the fantasy numbers, how do you kind of see this pan out with some of these young quarterbacks? Because the one that we're waiting to see is obviously Tua in Miami. But how do you think, after seeing Burrow and Herbert and a lot of these young quarterbacks too in their year 2 starts, how do you think that these guys will favor out, just judged by the numbers?
Oh, there'll be tremendous upside for year 2. And for me, as a general rule in fantasy football, I never draft rookie quarterbacks unless they are have a rushing component to their stats, because for the most part they tend to be terrible for fantasy. They'll get a low number of touchdowns, usually around 20 to 24. They'll get a high number of interceptions in the first year, and that kills a lot of drives. It not only hurts their value, but it also hurts the value of the fantasy players that are around them as well. So I tend to steer clear of all of that for rookies. But for the second year upside, there is tremendous upside. And you look at what Lamar Jackson did in his second year. You look at what Patrick Mahomes did in his second year. That's what I'm most excited for. And so if Tua, like with Fitz, if Fitz can put together a full season here and not completely fall to pieces, and then Tua comes in next year, Tua would probably be like my top choice for a quarterback. It's that sort of a situation where if he has a full year to get himself acclimated and adjusted to the offensive system, and then comes in, maybe we see him at the end of this year for a game or two. But that's where you really want to look at for tremendous upside, where you can really get value on your draft pick. That's the best way to do it, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of feel the same exact way for some of these young quarterbacks. I mean, it's interesting. I'm watching all these quarterbacks, and we're definitely coming into a new era of NFL quarterbacks that we're now kind of sticking more to mobile arm accuracies, but also at the same time creating spaces for quarterbacks to now make their throws to their top-notch wide receivers. I mean, honestly, you're seeing that all over the place. You're watching Russell Wilson most of the time play his position. Patrick Mahomes, I'll argue, the first 2 seasons for him seemed like he was kind of wild and a little bit, he was a little bit of a gunslinger at times, but then this year, what's so scary about it is he plays like a surgeon. Like, he's very, very focused. He's hitting every top-notch position. And by the way, I've been saying this over and over again. Josh Allen is a hit. Josh Allen is absolutely a hit. I don't understand why people don't kind of see that this way with the Buffalo Bills. All they needed on that key component was they needed a deep ball receiver. They got one in Stephon Diggs, and now you're seeing how well Josh Allen's really producing with that. And and I'll argue too, there were some young quarterbacks that needs a little bit of generalization. I mean, and kind of they had to take a step back. I mean, look at Baker Mayfield. Kevin Stefanski now has shortened the amount of throws Baker would throw. So now they're giving him 23, 25 throws, but they're relying so much on the run game. But speaking of the run game as well, I've had my list of quarterbacks coming into this year. And we know that there's not a whole lot of love for the running back position, but we have seen some guys thrive. I mean, look, Raheem Mostert is definitely living up to his expectation. But a lot of these young running backs, the one I've really looked at is Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis, who I think the next couple of years to come, because he's got a really good offensive line. he's got a strong offensive line that he can be a power presence busting through the front seven of the defense and strive for yards and even for touchdowns as well per carry. Amongst these running back cores in the fantasy numbers, who has stood out to you as a guy that has been producing by yards per carry, and also too ones that strive for either first downs or scores as well?
Well, I got to say, one of the biggest pleasant surprises this year is James Robinson, who I was very big on once Leonard Fournette got traded, because I was reading the report saying he's the reason why they got rid of Leonard Fournette. So I'm like, I got to get as many shares of this guy as I can. I got him on about half my fantasy leagues, but he has been outstanding as a complete afterthought in the draft, and just to come out and be immediately super productive both on the ground and in the air. He's one of my favorites for this year as far as a new find, and certainly next season he's going to be like a round 2, round 3 player just based on what he's doing right now. It's amazing. I don't think anybody expected that. Jonathan Taylor also, has been fantastic. We knew he was in a good situation anyway, but then Marlon Mack getting injured only accelerated what he's able to do. So, that is also very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at a kid like Jonathan Taylor. I mean, just the build. I mean, look, you're coming out of a system in Wisconsin where, and I kind of anticipated the program thinking, this program was going to be a top 10 in the AP polls. But they're strong. I mean, they're built for something like this. He's strong, stocky, and he even is a guy that knows how to move his feet. And coming into an Indianapolis organization, which it just kind of feels like it's such a fit to me. Like, he's so Indianapolis, because you hadn't had big name running backs that I'll argue since probably Edgerrin James, Joseph Adai, and even, a little bit of Dominic Rhodes. But at that time, I feel like Jonathan Taylor will be very successful in an offensive line like this that will produce some more runs. I'll even say too, I'm actually kind of curious to see how Cam Akers really favors with the LA Rams, because the Rams right now have actually really bounced back. And it even brings me to my point as well. Bounce back years for players. And I'll argue, people probably don't believe me 110% about it, but Jared Goff has been looking like his best. I've been saying this over again. When you have a system like Sean McVay and Jared Goff, he's going to utilize the best of Goff's abilities to win games. And I feel like Sean McVay has definitely done that. I mean, right now with what's happening in San Francisco, it's a little unfortunate, but you still got Kyle Shanahan who win you games. But when you look at the fantasy numbers of Jared Goff this year versus last year, is this a much better version of Jared Goff we're getting this year versus what happened in last year's campaign?
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, it was kind of surprising to see Goff slump last year, and really the whole Rams organization was very much a disappointment coming off their Super Bowl. But that can be expected. There is a Super Bowl slump that happens. And I think they're really back in business now. And I think Darrell Henderson has been an extreme. I mean, he has been a very much a surprise so far this season. He's been playing really, really well. Cam Akers has been injured. That helps him as well. And unfortunately, the injury, I think, is going to hinder Cam Akers getting a bigger role on that offense. I was thinking he would be the primary back, but it just hasn't happened yet. I think that I think it's great. I mean, I got tons of shares of Robert Woods. I love what he's doing this year. And I only have one share of Goff as a backup quarterback. I haven't started him yet though, because I believe I have Lamar Jackson in front of him. So I haven't put him into the starting role yet. But it's great. And could we actually see all 4 NFC West teams make the playoffs this year? That certainly is something that is in the realm of possibilities.
It could possibly be, and I think that would be very interesting as well. And it's funny because I go to my point, Jimmy, like, I don't know if this is kind of just a coastal shift to me, but I've said this just before bringing you on that to me, I look at the East Coast and I look at mostly New York. All these players and some of these coaches as well, they're all shifting up out west. I mean, they look at the talent that's there. They look at the potentialities of each group. And you just look at New York right now, and New York just has not looked the same. I watched that Thursday night game against Denver, and I'm really surprised that the Jets have not I've already said this myself. Gase is closed. Like, move on. And I'm very surprised about that. But my big thing is because I'm very optimistic about Sam Darnold, because you and I both know there have been times in Darnold's game where he can show up. But my question to you is, do you think at some point the Jets, because I'm waiting for this to be done sooner than later, but do you think the Jets will be like by next week or maybe a couple days later finally pull the strings on Adam Gase and then possibly look for a new head coach? And who do you think would be the best capable candidate to at least get Darnold to his 110% abilities?
Yeah, I said before the season that I put the over under for Adam Gase at 6 games. And so we're almost there, and I think it's pretty clear that he's not going to be retained. And as far as Sam Darnold, once he's released from the clutches of Adam Gase's horrible coaching, I think he'll be really good. But I don't think he's going to do it on the Jets. I think what the Jets are going to do is they're obviously going to tank this year. They're going to take a quarterback with their first pick, and I think they're going to trade Darnold somewhere else. But I think Darnold's future could be very bright. Getting out of that organization. It's just super unfortunate that his talent has been squandered there just by bad management and inferior players around him. How much can we really expect him to do? But like I said, over under is 6 for Gase. So that's where I'm going right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, shoot, moving off of Sam Darnold, do you think we might expect possibly a product like Trevor Lawrence to maybe come into a New York system?
Right. Isn't that the chant, like tank for Trevor? Absolutely. I think that's what they need. And again, the whole NFC East and the AFC East, with I call it an incestuous relationship where these coaches just kind of move between these teams on the East Coast. And I'm like, why? They were bad at the last job. Why would you give them a job at another team in the same division? It just doesn't make any sense. They do need to bring in some new talent. My favorite would be Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for Kansas City, former Colorado Buffalo, go Buffs. I think Bieniemy is going to be a very hot candidate for a head coaching position, especially if Kansas City goes to another Super Bowl. So you can't ignore that. So
yeah, I like that. I like that thought for sure. I mean, because to me personally, the only thing I can hope for, because I've said this before, New York just looks like an absolute mess. It looks like an absolute mess. I mean, you got the Knicks, who James Dolan, we don't even know when he's going to sell the team and eventually break this curse to now strive for championships. Of course, the Jets and the Giants right now. Like, the Giants' situation post Tom Coughlin has not looked the same. I mean, you're going off of Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, and now Joe Judge, and this is still becoming the same end results that New York is just not thriving, with any of their management. And same with the Jets. The fact that, CJ Mosley sits out the year. Jamal Adams now is in Seattle. And all these players now, it's like not a lot of them want to play with the Jets. None of them want to play with the Jets. And then you've got, the Mets, who I really anticipated because of their pitching and because they're hitting, they're not making the postseason. And the Yankees, you're only hoping nobody gets hurt. But it's just like New York is just going through an absolute curse. And I just feel like that, the ownership, the management there needs a complete shift, because it just doesn't seem like this management group is fully invested in some of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, certainly management has a part of it. Bad luck has a part of it. The injuries, because I was actually feeling pretty confident about the Giants this year, but losing Saquon, Sterling Shepard's injured. I was thinking that Daniel Jones would be a good candidate for breaking out this year, really being a good second year play. But then again, the first month of the Giants schedule is brutal deluxe. I mean, it really is. Really was a really tough schedule anyway. So I kind of backed him off, as far as going after him. And I don't have any shares of Daniel Jones, but I did grab some Sterling Shepard, and the guy's sitting on my IR, and hopefully he'll come back soon. But I don't know. It's kind of a combination of a number of different things. I was really thinking that this would be the turnaround year for the Giants, but it's not going to be this year. We'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Jimmy Maverick here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Give me some insights of what we're going to be looking into for tomorrow's game. I know you and I are definitely looking at it big time. I mean, I think this is going to be an exciting week 4. What does the fantasy forecast say for you, and who to really look out for, and which ones to kind of take a little step back on here this next week?
Well, I think the teams that you need to take a little bit of a step back on, and first of all, the surprise bye week for Pittsburgh and Tennessee has kind of thrown a monkey wrench into week 4 as far as people with their lineups. But also, as I said, where's the defense? Well, there's just a couple of defenses that are doing very well: Tampa Bay, Indianapolis. And I think that maybe one other, but offenses facing those defenses, I think really need to watch out, that is, but otherwise, man, it'll be great across the board again, because it's just scoring so many points. It's almost as if we're to the point where if a player doesn't get you 2 touchdowns, it's just considered, well, they had an okay week, If a player just gets 1 touchdown, you're like, oh, that's okay, but it's not good. They need to get 2 touchdowns to be like, wow, all right, for your fantasy team. But it's just going to continue until these defenses start to show up and really figure out how to shut things down. Like I said, Miami's playing Seattle this week. I think Miami is a fantastic play, for Ryan Fitzpatrick and Preston Williams and Devontae Adams and Myles Gaskin, all those guys, man, just play them, because Seattle can't stop anybody. So there's going to be prolific points scored by the Miami Dolphins, which is weird for me to say out loud, but it's true. That's the kind of season that we're in. So
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are big time offensive powerhouses. I mean, it's funny because you look at Russell Wilson and what he's been able to do in the span of 3 weeks going into 4. The fact that again, we've been living on the chant, let Russ cook. And sure enough, he's been cooking it to everybody. He's been getting everybody to bounce up.
He's on pace for 75 touchdowns. 75.
Oh Lord,
crazy.
My Lord.
I mean, that would, Peyton Manning in 2013. Did you lose me? I think you lost me.
Yep. Oh, hold up. We got bad connection up over here.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Yeah. I got you on my too. It should be working.
Oh, you got you. Yeah. Hold on a second. Hopefully it'll come back to the feed. I think.
Let's see here. What's going on with my internet connection? Did it switch back to the? No, I am still on the hotspot. It says I'm getting a good signal here.
Same here. Let me see. Yeah, I'm up on a good signal myself also. And I'm literally close to my internet. I don't know what it is. I think it might be a StreamYard thing. Oh, hold on 1 second. We'll get him back up here in just a second. Had a little bit of technical difficulty there. Let's wait for him to come back just here in a second. I absolutely can't stand it. All right, here we go. All right, let's see if this worked up. Let's see, where is his face at? Okay, it's
still trying to connect on my side. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but it's I got a little spinning dial here trying to bring it in.
I can hear you right up from over here. I think that might be just this. I don't know if it's the StreamYard network itself, but
I mean, it completely threw me out. I just I had to go back in. I'm not sure what the issue is because I'm connected fine. I got a strong signal. So I don't know why it's giving me.
I have no clue whatsoever. Yeah, I don't know. I think it might be just the streaming network from here, but
hold on, I did just get a message. What happened here? Oh shoot! I just got to know that they just reduced my data speed. Let me try to connect on my Wi-Fi and see if we can reconnect that way. It's not as good a signal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, we'll wait for Jimmy to come back again. All right, here we go. All right, now I think it's a little better. There we go. Now it's much better.
Sorry about that. Apparently, I just hit my data limit on my phone.
Oh yeah, no worries, man. It's all good. But yeah, I mean, just kind of wrapping up with the week 4. I mean, I got some interesting matches. I really do like the matchup between Cleveland and Dallas here. Because I look at Dallas right now, and I've been saying this about them. I feel like this is a team that's going to potentially go 8-8 because there is a lot of uncertainties. The offense is not my problem. My problem is that the fact that the defensive secondaries giving up passes, giving up points. I mean, they're coming off some close wins, but at the same time, you gave up 39 to Atlanta. You gave up X amount of points in the last previous game. And so I'm looking at it with Cleveland, and I feel like they can benefit well because the fact of Cleveland's been limiting Baker Mayfield with his throws and have been relying on Nick Chubb to run the football majority of the time. And I feel like that may be something that the defensive front 7 might catch on and be able to stop the run for Cleveland. But the other matchup I look at too is, I look at the Chargers and Tampa Bay matchup. I mean, that one's going to be interesting. Young versus old, and how these offenses both favor out here on this week. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an absolutely interesting week 4, but hopefully for all of us fantasy owners, and especially with the way that things are looking and panning out on our lineups, hopefully we'll be able to see some good production this week.
Yeah, again, I think when you talk about the Dallas defense, again, it's another one of those teams. Where's the defense? So absolutely, it's going to be a big day, for whoever's facing them. I think, Tampa Bay is actually, I think they're going to have their way with the Chargers because the Chargers are so depleted with injuries anyway on both sides of the ball. I think that, I think Tampa Bay will definitely take care of business against the Chargers. But it's, it's going to be a good fantasy day all around. I mean, I've just come to expect that now. That's the kind of season that we're in. It's going to be offensive razzle dazzle once again this week, and high scoring fantasy games. I mean, I can't believe how many times I've scored like 180 plus points on just a regular PPR league or something like that. I mean, it's crazy. It's just,
hey, I call
them gonzo games. You usually don't even see them till the end of the season, when a lot of are just in spoiler mode, they're not going to make the playoffs, or some team is desperately trying to make the playoffs. That's when you see this sort of stuff happening. But here it's been since week 1, man, bam, just crazy offensive numbers from all these teams that you wouldn't normally expect to be able to do that. So, like I said, just enjoy the ride, because it's fun. Offense is fun.
Absolutely. Of course. I mean, offense is obviously in this era of sports. I mean, it's kind of everything with everybody, like you look at hockey, you wouldn't expect, a lot of people to score X amount of goals. And then you got the NFL with scoring touchdowns. You got quarterbacks and wide receivers who are benefiting with this. And then, even with baseball, where everybody just loves the offense, they love the power bats, they love all that. And so it's kind of interesting how this era of sports has really come into. So, and real quick, just as a side question, do you think the NFL, after this season and after everything that they've kind of gone through with just handling, obviously, with the pandemic, handling with injuries, do you think we should expect the preseason to come back by next year?
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking by next August, I think we should be in a pretty good situation with that, with the vaccines being available for the coronavirus, that things will, by the end of next summer, should be getting close to back to normal. So yeah, and I got to say, man, I think that the NFL has done an outstanding job with their coronavirus protocols. They haven't had hardly any problems until this week. And, they moved the Pittsburgh game. They rescheduled the Pittsburgh Ravens game to make room for that in the schedule. I got to say, they've done a very good job. And so I'm very impressed that they've been that it's been handled so well, as opposed to the NBA. Sorry, not the NBA, the baseball. Who had some real problems at the start of the season with breakouts, but I think they're doing a great job. I think they've done an excellent job this year. And I just had to take my hat off to them, because keeping this game going, I think it's great, important. It's fun. It's an escape, and we need that right now.
Absolutely. I 110% agree with you on that one. So do tell all of the audience here, where can they find you with all of your content and all of your great insights and analysis on everything for fantasy football?
Oh, okay. Well, I do a podcast, and so I am on all of the platforms, iTunes, Spotify, all those. Just look up Jimmy Maverick. That's Jimmie Maverick. You can find me there. I also have a YouTube page, also under the name of Jimmy Maverick. And my website is fantasyfootballmaverick.com. That's where I have a draft tool called My Perfect Fantasy Draft that I created to help people with their fantasy drafts. Of course, the season for that is over right now, so it'll be for the 2021 season once this season is done. But that's where I establish most of my presence. You can also find me on Instagram under Jimmy Maverick as well. So definitely check me out.
There you go, my friends. Definitely where you can find Jimmy Maverick and give you all of the insights and analysis of everything you need to know fantasy football wise for all the fantasy football diehards out there looking to help to boost their lineups. Definitely check him out. Jimmy, it's so good to talking to you, my friend. I appreciate you jumping on here onto the show, and hoping everything stays safe and well where you are. And hopefully at some point soon, we'll definitely kick it sometime soon once all this starts to kind of clear up. Take care of yourself, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Anytime. All right. Jimmy Maverick here. One of my very best guys that I look at with fantasy football. I mean, man, he knows it a lot. He knows it an absolute lot, has all the best insights, even when I look at some of these players, because I look at all of just the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and a lot, it's interesting. It's really popped out this year. And so really, really interested to see how the rest of the season will pan out. But all right, guys, coming up hour 2 of the show on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Don't go anywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here. We are at hour 2 live from Las Vegas. It is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening today. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is where you can like and follow all social media platforms under the one network that's got you covered for sports. That's the Spotlight Sports Network. Definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the like, hit the bell button for all the latest notifications of future shows with myself and with all of my other great colleagues as well in the network. Also get some highlights, analysis, and everything you need to know on all your favorite sports teams. Also, we have a Spotify account for all of our podcast episodes as well. You guys can check that out. But we're live. We're live on Twitch, Facebook Live, Twitter, and also on YouTube. So you guys can definitely catch me all the way around. So what a good interview with Jimmy Maverick. Like I said, he was the first ever interview I had on the show a year ago. And it's funny, we actually did this on Instagram Live. But he was a guy that just, I've seen his content, he's seen mine, and he basically, loved every single insight. And so just like that, we clicked. And so at that point, encouraged me to bring him on to the show. And I know it has been a year in the making, and I'm very happy at the fact that I was able to get the time with him. But he has a lot of really, really good insights when it comes to fantasy football, and definitely a guy that I trust a whole lot when it comes to certain fantasy football ins and outs and what I need to expect for the next week's games. But speaking of that, and we've got serious insights, because you know exactly what time it is, folks. It's that time again, and we're getting ready for week 4. It is my annual Prime Predictions week 4. I know that the Prime Predictions had been somewhat rough, somewhat have really kind of gone our way. But here we go. Prime Prediction week 4. Here we go. All right, so this is, of course, an interesting matchup that'll be at 10 a.m. in Tampa. That's the Chargers and the Buccaneers. This one here is going at a touchdown ratio here on the over-under. But I am definitely going to be taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here in this game. Now, listen, there are a lot of ins and outs that have been happening here. Now, the Chargers are going to be without Chris Harris, another one of their corners and secondaries. And so it's kind of opening up the secondary game for the LA Chargers. And it's been kind of unfortunate. Now, the other thing is Trey Turner is out again for the 4th straight week, and Brian Bulaga is going to be out. So both these tackles and guards, it's not going to be looking great for the Chargers here in this one, but it's not anticipating to me that Justin Herbert and what performance we saw against Carolina and even the performance before in Kansas City, that he might not be able to pull something off. I mean, I think he will. But I am definitely going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the -7 here, and we'll give it a reasonable score. I think it'll probably go to about a 23-30 Buccaneers win here with the touchdown, with the touchdown favor. So this is an interesting matchup, and we all know Mitch Trubisky is sat down and Nick Foles is getting the start for the Bears here. And I'm not sure it's going to be, temporary or if it's going to be for the rest of the year. But I am taking the Chicago Bears at +3. This is interesting because you got Chicago on the at home in Soldier Field. And the one thing that's interesting you have to think of, in cold weather situations, Nick Foles is at his best. Nick Foles is definitely a guy, throws well, and also really produces when he's got a lead. And Chicago has been the type of team that they don't go down so easily. And they're surprisingly a 3-0 team. And this is something that I didn't expect with the Chicago Bears, but they did scare us in a bunch of plays and in a bunch of situations that Trubisky and company were in, but had managed to get the jobs done. And the defenses, honestly, they've been playing real good. The defense has actually been showing up in multiple ways, but it will be interesting against Phillip Rivers and the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm going to take the Bears here +3, and we'll go with a 24-21 score. Bears cover the +3 here. All right, so you already know who I'm going with here in this game, and I do believe he's going to get his first career win, and that is Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Jaguars. I'm going to take Cincinnati at the -2.5. Listen, these are one of these games that Cincinnati finally gets a break from. I mean, it was unfortunate with the play against the Chargers. It was the unfortunate play against the Browns, but still managed to show up. And Joe Burrow, by the way, despite with where the Bengals are really going at this point, has not stopped himself short. This is a kid, no preseason, no OTAs. He's been producing big time for the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's only just for an opportunity like this where they're going to get a win, and they're and better yet, a team like Jacksonville that they're just an absolute mess. And this is kind of a team that I think is definitely going to take steps back and possibly finish up the year with the losing record. But the Bengals here in this game, I do see them winning here, and Joe Burrow is going to shine big time against Jacksonville's defense, or the so-called defense they once had. I'm going to take the Bengals to win this one 30-21. I know it's going to be more than the 2.5, but I'm definitely taking the score. Cincinnati will win this game. So this was tough for me to pick here in this one, but I am going with Dallas here against the Cleveland Browns at that -4.5. Let me give you some insights here in this one. Cleveland and Kevin Stefanski has figured out their scheme. They realized that Baker Mayfield is not the savior in this organization, and you're only limiting him to a certain extent with his abilities. So looking at Baker Mayfield, I mean, he's been throwing 23, 25 times now in each of these games, but most of your juice has been coming from the running back position. And so Nick Chubb has been the guy that they've relied on. But in this defensive front seven for the Dallas Cowboys, that's where they're going to anticipate and they're going to expect it. Expect Baker Mayfield to throw. Because, listen, for as much as I like to talk crap about the Cowboys secondaries, I do think this is going to be an interesting game. And I do believe that the last 2 weeks the Cowboys have played, they've been scoring 80 points. And the offense, I've said this over and over again, the offense is not my problem. The offense is not the issue. The issue is hoping that the defense will shut down majority of offenses that come into games like this. I think this is going to be an interesting matchup. I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys, and let's go with a reasonable score of at least 27-21. Cowboys win this one at home. All right, so of course, I'm going with the on the road New Orleans Saints here to rebound themselves against the Detroit Lions. Now, remember, this is not an easy team either when it comes to defensive schematics. Detroit has really kind of shown themselves in certain situations that they can be a tough team. But you know what, New Orleans right now, the only hopes is that you can hope Michael Thomas is back this week. Drew Brees having a better rebound. I mean, it's something's got to give for the Saints here in this one. But I do believe that the Saints, even with the run game that they had last week against Green Bay, Alvin Kamara definitely showed his skills and his set last week against that Green Bay front seven. But I do believe that he'll have a humongous day against the Detroit Lions. So I'm taking New Orleans with that -3, and we'll give it a real good score of 28-23. I do think they'll beat them on the road in Detroit. Detroit, their offense, looks like a mess. And I think that the defense is going to reshape and refocus themselves and get themselves right where they need to be. So, of course, this is going to be a fun game, and maybe this could be a game that we can determine whether or not if Tua is going to end up coming out soon. But I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks -5 against Miami on the road. Listen, Russell Wilson has been on an absolute mission. He's made no mistakes. He has scored X amount of touchdowns, and he is having an MVP caliber year this year, and he's on pace. Jimmy and I talked about this earlier. He's on pace for 75 passing touchdowns. That's nuts. And as we've said, in the years that, Russell Wilson, they weren't enabling him to basically take control of the offense. Those were the numbers that, you see from there. But then since then, he has had X amount of touchdowns. I think he's had almost close to 14 touchdowns, no picks. And this is a guy that has really been cooking for Seattle, and he's cooking with everybody. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, all these wide receivers that are absolute no names. They're making something of this, and it's interesting. But I do think this will be quite the matchup against Miami with the fact that their defense is rebuilding. So I'm going to take Seattle here in this game, and I'm going to go with a reasonable score, 27-21. I think Seattle is definitely going to end up winning this game, and Russell Wilson's going to keep on cooking. All right, so I think this one's a no-brainer, and they're definitely going to rebound themselves back after a loss to Kansas City. I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens against the Washington football team. I don't like particularly the bet line because, of course, you're asking so much for Baltimore, and in a week that kind of seemed really odd against Kansas City. The defense needs to rebound, and the offense, of course, this is where they're going to reshape and refocus here in this one. And but of course, don't mistake yourself with Washington. Now, it is unfortunate that Chase Young is out, and you have a couple of defensive players who are also out on injury. Now, this may change for Washington in a heartbeat, but I'm going with the Ravens here. 14 points. It's ridiculous. But I do think it's doable. So I'm going with a reasonable score of at least 35-14. Baltimore is just going to run through Washington big time. So this is interesting because, of course, we had last week with Arizona where they ended up losing that game, and Kyler Murray looked like he was off last week. And so I'm going with the Cardinals against the Panthers. And just by looking at the Panthers offense, you already know it's kind of different without Christian McCaffrey running the football, catching the football. But don't mistake that Teddy Bridgewater can sometimes bring the Carolina Panthers back within range. He's been doing that last week against the Chargers with Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. So he's capable of anything. But I definitely do like the Cardinals in this situation. And I do think that Kyler Murray's going to rebound this week, get more passes to DeAndre Hopkins, who they've been clicking all since the start of the season. And I do think that this is going to be one of those games that I think might be back and forth, but I think the Cardinals will get the last laugh. I'm taking the -3 with Arizona, and let's go with the reasonable score here, 28-24. Cardinals win against the Panthers on the road. All right, so of course it's going to be one of those weeks. Who's going to get the first win of the season, especially with how things have been looking at from here. So I'm going to go with the Texans here with Deshaun Watson in the -4. Listen, my Minnesota is definitely rebounding themselves, and the rebuild, the defense is interesting. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to end up panning out, but I do see that Deshaun Watson's going to work his magic to get the Houston Texans on the board with their first win of the season. So I'm going to go with the reasonable score here and go with a 24-20 Texans win here at home against Minnesota. All right, so of course, this is kind of an easy steamroll here at home in LA for the Rams. I had -13 against a Giants team that was just sorry with 9 points last week against San Francisco. I'm taking the LA Rams. Listen, Jared Goff has been on a different level this year. He's looked much better than the year before, and I think he's really starting to lock himself in. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, they've all been excelling with Jared Goff, not to mention Tyler Higbee and Greg Reynolds. These are some guys that LA's got an interesting offense, but Sean McVay has been making this thing work. So I'm going with the LA Rams, and not to mention their defensive play with Aaron Donald and so many others and Michael Brockers. This is going to be a hell of a defense that's going to be all over Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. I'm going to go with a big-time score here. This is going to be pretty much an embarrassment. 28-13. I'm going with the Rams here. If they score at least another touchdown, I think that's probably what's going to be in store. But I'm going with that. 28-13. Rams win at home. So I'm definitely going with the Kansas City Chiefs at home. And after the performance that they had against the Baltimore Ravens, this is a team that is completely unstoppable. Patrick Mahomes is absolutely looking like the surgeon. He is very focused, very poised, whether he's in or out of the pocket, and he's just been making the offense work. And even last week against Baltimore, he devoured that defense and throwing a lot of balls to Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Sammy Watkins, and McCole Hart. He's been throwing it to literally everybody and has been utilizing everybody on their offensive schematics. So I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to go with the reasonable score here, 28-20 at home in Kansas City in Arrowhead. I think that's definitely a doable game, and Patrick Mahomes, they're going to steamroll and go to 4-0. So this is going to be a tough game for me, but, my colleague probably still will give me a bunch of crap. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills on the road in Vegas with that -3. And listen, Josh Allen's been clicking. Josh Allen has been an absolute splash for the Buffalo Bills, and he's worked with this offense. All they needed, folks, was just a deep ball receiver. But if you look at it, based upon the numbers, Josh Allen has not disappointed this year. He's been a guy that has really been putting the numbers up, and this offense has been rolling with him. Now, the only hopes is that they get their tight end back, Dawson Knox, who was out last week in that big-time win against the LA Rams. But I think this team is ready to go, and I think the defense is also going to be working Derek Carr and the Raiders, but it will be interesting to see how that favors out. Bills are going to win this game 27-24. Not going to be too easy, but I do think that the Buffalo Bills are going to put up a fight. So, of course, this one's going to be the toughest game of this week for the Philadelphia Eagles with the San Francisco 49ers. Now, they are without Nick Mullins or they're without Jimmy Garoppolo here, and Nick Mullins is getting the start for the San Francisco 49ers. But I am hopes that the Philadelphia Eagles come up and win with that touchdown +7. I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles because, listen, this is a time that is pissing off Carson Wentz and a lot of these guys. And so, but Philadelphia, we know with the amount of injuries that they got, it has not looked great. But I do feel like that with where San Francisco is going, the Giants disappointed last week. But when you're playing Philadelphia, you can only hope that there is a good rally showing for them. And I do think that Philadelphia will rebound themselves back, get their first win of the season, and just to be able to reshape and refocus, hopefully get this team back up on track. So I'm going with Philadelphia, and we're going to go with the reasonable score, 27-20. They'll win by that touchdown. +7 is where I'm going with it. I think it's a risk worth taking. So in Lambeau, on the road for the Atlanta Falcons, it has not looked great for them this season, but it has looked really good for Todd Gurley and a lot of the offenses. But I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. They have been a team on a mission. They've been looking great. Aaron Rodgers is looking like his absolute best, and don't tell me he doesn't have support. Man, Allen Lazard, this is without Devontae Adams, but Allen Lazard, Valdez-Scantling, and Aaron Jones have all been working to their best extent from here. This is what's been very interesting about the Green Bay Packers this year. And it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season pans out for them. But I do see them beating the Atlanta Falcons here in that -7 that is favored on their way. I'm going to take a reasonable score here and go with a 30-23, or actually 30-21, I should say. Packers win here against Atlanta at home in Lambeau. So there you have it. There's my prime predictions here for this week. I'm going with the Bucks over the Chargers, Bears over the Colts, Bengals over the Jags, Cowboys over the Browns, Saints over the Lions, Seahawks over the Dolphins, Ravens against Washington, Cardinals over the Panthers, Texans over the Vikings, Rams over the Giants, Chiefs at the Patriots, Bills over the Raiders, Eagles over the 49ers, and the Packers over the Falcons. And by the way, just to giving everybody a heads up, but apparently there's been breaking news happening in New England. Not entirely sure what will happen next, but Cam Newton has tested positive for COVID-19. And it's not going to look good now for the New England Patriots and where they're headed here, for especially for this week. So this ain't good. This is not good. So, of course, as I said, my pick still stands with the Kansas City Chiefs, but I hope that Cam Newton is all right and hope that, he gets better, he recovers, and hope to have him back out on the field very soon. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit more on MLB postseason, what to expect, and also talk a little bit more on hockey and what we could see coming into this year's offseason. Don't go anywhere. Snake Sports Talk Show. All righty, folks. Welcome back here. If you're just tuning in here to the Snake Sports Talk Show, we really do appreciate you guys jumping on. Like us and subscribe here to the show, just to get you on board with future episodes as well here on the show on the YouTube channel. So we got some interesting matchups. Of course, the wild card series is over. I like this. I've been looking really deep in thought into this whole baseball postseason. And I think this is probably the best thing that could ever happen. Now, I don't agree with the locations, only because baseball's been traveling for 2 months. Why now are we starting to end up going into the bubble? Part of it doesn't make too much sense, but I understand why they're trying to do that. I mean, you look at how hockey, they're done now with the playoffs. They got a champion. That's the Tampa Bay Lightning. You've got the NBA that's in the NBA Finals with the Lakers and the Heat. And who knows exactly what may happen with the NFL, but there even are talks about a bubble coming up soon in the playoffs. But in baseball postseason, with the way things have been shaped and the way that things have looked, it's really interesting. It's really interesting to see how they've really kind of shaped this up. But in my opinion, and looking at this whole postseason, it's been exciting. I'm happy enough. I'm a happy camper that the fact that the A's beat the White Sox, made it through. But now they got to play the Houston Astros. Then you've got the Cubs, who got upset by the Miami Marlins, of all teams, who last year had a 105-loss season. And is here in the postseason in a shortened season. And by the way, their playoff record, they're 7-0 in the postseason. It's crazy. So, and these are just counting by series wins. So they have yet to have a loss in their column with that. And they're taking on the Atlanta Braves. That's not going to be an easy matchup. I do see the Atlanta Braves beating the Marlins here. And moving on to the NLCS, you got the Dodgers and you've got the San Diego Padres. So this is what's interesting. You know the Dodgers are in a mission this year. Lakers, we know, are already in a mission. They're doing it for Kobe, winning the NBA Finals. This is the Dodgers' opportunity to winning the championship. Look at the group they have. Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, Kike Hernandez, Justin Turner, Chris Taylor, Jock Peterson. They're loaded top to bottom with really good young talents. And they've even got pitching. You're facing off against a San Diego team who they too got some real good bats. Eric Hosmer, Fernando Tatis Jr., Will Myers, and Manny Machado. They got a lot of real good bats. Pitching's getting younger. I don't think they have too much of, big time frontline starters because you only have Mike Paddock and Mike Clevenger. But they do have an interesting bullpen. And that's what's really going to test the Dodgers' abilities. But with how healthy that the Dodgers are and how healthy that the Padres are, this is going to be an interesting one. I do see that game, that series, possibly ending in 5 and the Dodgers making it through. Because this is a team that is on a mission to winning a World Series, especially with the way that things have panned out for the last couple of years for the Dodgers, winning multiple division titles. But at the same time, they just haven't been able to get the job done to win the title, and that's the World Series. You've got the Yankees against the Tampa Bay Rays. I think this is going to be an interesting one. Tampa, they're stacked with their pitching staff. It's young, but a lot of these guys have a lot of stuff. I mean, I love watching Tyler Glass now with the curveball and slider that he moves. And he's got an overpowering fastball, by the way. It's really interesting to see how the Rays favor this out. But pitching is going to be the biggest factor here in this series. What's going on, Damian? Glad you could come on, my friend. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did get the news. I announced it earlier just before going into the break that Cam Newton is tested with COVID. my thoughts and prayers, hopefully, that he recovers fast and get him back out on the field soon. So, but I do think that this is a series that I think is going to be very, very interesting. I think that's a series that may very much go in 5, and I'm still in hopes that the Yankees will make it through. I mean, this is setting itself up to potentially be a Dodgers-Yankees World Series. If it doesn't, then it may be a Dodgers-A's World Series. My pops is very hopeful that it may be a Dodgers-A's World Series. He's thinking it's a repeat of '88, but we'll see. We'll see what the determining factor is there. But I really do love this structure. I think the fact of, look, we've all watched College World Series, right? The fact that the College World Series and how they played it, it was a best of 3 series. In my opinion, when I watched this whole wild card series, this has been perfect because this one and done crap, this is not the NFL. Okay, this is not something where you have a week's worth of preparation to where you are getting prepared for Sunday. It's not. Having a best of 3 series in baseball, I think, is the smartest thing that's ever happened because managers can't build a lineup overnight. It just doesn't happen. And setting a best of 3 only gives you a few things. One, that the manager, regardless of a win or loss, that if he wins, cool. If he doesn't, that's where he's got to make some sort of adjustments. And that's where the stabilizer and the silver lining is always game 2. Well, the Cardinals actually got knocked off. They got knocked off by the Padres last night. But the other thing of it is you got Miami, but it's going to be interesting. But this whole series, I think, has been great. And listen, this one and done stuff, people overly criticized managers way too early, in my opinion. I know how many times people have criticized Bob Melvin. And I'm sure a lot of people have criticized a lot of managers after. But Bob Melvin needed that. He needed that series win. They finally got it in the win column. It snaps their 14-year series losing streak. But they finally win it, and now they're playing the Houston Astros in LA. It's going to be interesting. But I look at it this way. I mean, the only managers who really were not successful, Cincinnati's manager got shut out by the Braves. The Indians' manager, Terry Francona, didn't work. Then you also got Minnesota's manager who got shut out by Houston. So it tells you already that they give you 2 chances. 1, wondering how the first game is going to pan out. 2 is either win and rebound yourselves if you made changes in the lineup, or you lose again. Then it'll explain exactly who you are as a manager. That's why I think the second game of these 3-game series have been the most important focal point, because it shows the managers what they're really made of. And if they can build the best lineup, regardless of a win or loss, then that's where you really kind of see the manager's, the manager's sight through this, eye to eye. He looks at the lineup. If some things work beautifully. If some don't, then you got to make readjustments from there. But I really am loving how that 3-game series worked for the wild card. I think this is something that's going to last for a long, long time. And I think is great. I think this works beautifully. It makes sense. But, again, we're in a shortened season either way. But we'll see exactly how everything all pans out by the end of this, because this has been one of the most interesting, kind of head-scratching years that we've ever gone through. And but at least having with sports back takes our minds off of a lot of pressures and helps us to kind of, get our energies back, which is why I love sports so much. But I think this deal with baseball, with how their playoff structure it works. I think it works beautifully and it's solid. I just don't like the locations part of it, because why have the bubble now? And that's kind of something that you already know, all of the components that I've said about Rob Manfred all throughout this year. I mean, one, we could have had 100 games easily this season. Didn't happen. Instead, it was delayed way too long, and then a 60-game season just went on. And then you got the postseason, which what's a big hit is the fact of the wild card series now being a best of 3 instead of a one and done. I love it. But then there's this location stuff. And that's kind of something that's really weighed out my mind from here. But I think this is something that's going to be successful for years, but something really needs to give with the rest of the components that that Rob Manfred is dealing with. This is something that really has to give for themselves. So coming up next, my best for last, because I think that this is going to be very, very interesting. My best for last here on this one. And I've been looking at a few things. I'm looking at scenarios. I'm looking at certain scenarios, and this is with all of sports. This is all of sports. And so I'm going to give so many different possibilities, different situations. And we'll see exactly how this pans out. You guys don't want to end up missing that. Snake Sports Talk Show. Be back here in a moment. Alrighty, folks. Well, first and foremost, I just want to end up saying that I really do appreciate all of you guys jumping on here today. I was very happy to very happy to have all of you guys coming on here this year or today. And sorry, my mind's just like in complete spiral. Everything is just kind of happening, all these notifications. But very glad to have you guys on here today. Like I said, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Spotlight Sports Network for all of your social media live feeds as well, and also some breaking news. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe, hit the bell button for all the latest notifications on everything you need to know sports, and also for your favorite shows live on the network. Spotify is where you can follow us on podcast episodes, and also follow us on Twitch. We're everywhere around in our medias, so definitely check us out. And also, you want articles to read and also some merchandise to buy to rep your favorite shows, definitely go online to the Spotlight Sports Network. Check out all of the latest articles from myself and from my other colleagues, and also shop up your favorite merch. And hey, take a pic. Send us all your love. Show us out all of the gear you guys are repping. We really do appreciate it. So my best for last here, and just before I get into it, there were a couple of news here. Of course, with the Cam Newton testing positive for COVID. By the way, too, last night, we mourn the saddened loss of former two-time Cy Young Award winner, two-time World Series champion, and NL MVP from 1968, Bob Gibson, the legendary St. Louis Cardinals pitcher, died last night. He died peacefully, and our thoughts and prayers go to the Gibson family as well, and this hard time. But man, Bob Gibson was an absolute ace when it came to the St. Louis Cardinals, and just his presence, his presence at the bump. He was a really, really good player and a nice guy as well. So here's my best for last. There are a bunch of possibilities that I'm weighing out, and now my options are, and these are basically hot and cold. So we're kind of going into this, steaming up the pot type of best for last. So here we go. So here's what's steaming up on the pot. All right. We got something moving here up in the pot that we're trying to either cook up, or it's just going to go cold. So here's a possibility that we can throw in the pot. The Jets fire Adam Gase, and in this up and coming week, probably somewhere before week 5. That, I think, is heating up. You already know with the Jets, they say that they're not firing Adam Gase, and but I disagree. I feel like that the Jets front offices and their organization, you already see the performance from them. Sam Darnold is not the problem. Darnold has been able to bail out the Jets in multiple situations and in multiple games. All of this is all something that's coming from the coaching tree that's not working well with them. And this is kind of something that the New York Jets, they really need to clean house, because this is kind of something that has not looked good for them. And it also tells you too, Ryan Tannehill left Miami under Gase's system, goes to a system with Mike Vrabel, and he looks at his absolute best. What does that tell you about Adam Gase? Basically just tells you it's not looking great. Not looking really, really good. So it's kind of interesting to see how this will work out, but I think that is a possibility that's heating up. So the possibilities now, here's another one that's throwing in. The Vegas Golden Knights signed defenseman Tyson Barrie from the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think that one's getting cold. Listen, Vegas does not need an offensive-centric defenseman. They don't need another one. You saw what happened in the playoffs this past year. It did not look good. They had at least a couple of really good upfront defensemen. Braden McNabb, Zach Whitecloud, Alec Martinez. But outside of that, you have offensive centric guys. Shea Theodore was having one of the most outstanding seasons this past season. And was one that was almost kind of close to being in consideration for the Jack Norris Trophy. But looking at it, what do they need Tyson Barrie for? I don't understand it. You're dealing with Nate Schmidt, who I do believe that the Golden Knights really do need to move off of to bring in another defensive presence for them. But Tyson Barrie's coming off of a terrible year with Toronto after being traded from Colorado. He hasn't looked the best. He's suffered a bunch of injuries. And the last thing Vegas needs is they need an offensive-centric defenseman, a guy that strictly scores goals but does not play up-front defense. And not to mention, too, the puck passing skill has not mastered itself. It has not looked good that way, and that is something that the Golden Knights really need to adjust. Another possibility that's stirring in the pot. Will Bill O'Brien be fired as the Texans head coach? I'm going to say that's cold. I'm going to say that pot is getting cold. I don't see the possibility of that. Listen, Bill O'Brien, I know everybody knows he's not the best general manager, which is why they still will need to hire a general manager in Houston, because giving that type of power to a head coach as well, not the brightest idea for Houston. And it's really started to pan itself out. I mean, they're 0-3 right now. I have them beating Minnesota this week. But you can already tell the DeAndre Hopkins trade, the Brandon Cooks acquisition, not to mention, too, the offensive line has looked terrible for a guy like Deshaun Watson. And you're telling me that with all these moves, are you going to be prepared for Deshaun Watson to get hit 200 times this season, sacked 50 of those 200 times, and potentially tear his ACL again? I don't understand that with Houston, but I don't think that this is kind of a coaching aspect for the Texans. I just think this is more of a management perspective, because the management has not looked sound for Houston. So I don't think they're going to fire Bill O'Brien, but they should bring in a general manager that knows what he's doing. Another possibility, will the Dodgers win a World Series? I think that pot is heating up. Listen, the Dodgers, they're on a mission this year. They've got a big chip on their shoulder. They acquired dirt cheap for a guy like Mookie Betts and David Price. You can't tell me that the Dodgers won't have the components to win a World Series. This has been a shortened season. Everybody is 110% healthy. And the offense is rolling. They do have pitching, but the pitching is only limited to a certain extent when you get to the bullpen. But they do have some really good arms. Clayton Kershaw looked really good in his start, but you keep him as a starter, not a reliever. But I do believe that the Dodgers may potentially win the World Series. I know that they're going to make it again, but this is something that's shaping up to where everybody's healthy, everybody's ready to go, and that's where they got to stand at that point. So I do believe the Dodgers may win this World Series this year. It's a shortened season, no excuses, everybody's healthy, and you can only hope that the cards are in their favor. My pops has been saying it. He hopes it's a Dodgers-A's World Series of 88. So, and I think it would be exciting, but I think it's going to be a Dodgers-Yankees World Series. We get the best of what we want. So I do think that is in store for the Dodgers. What's another possibility? Um, will Mike Trout win a World Series? I'm going to say it's cold. Billy Upler this week got fired from his position at general manager. You're talking 8, close to 9 years in the making. 1 division title, no series wins, barely any playoff appearances. 1. 2014 was 1. And since Mike Trout has been in the league since 2012, and he's only been to 1 playoff appearance. And even in a shortened season, they still couldn't do it. But it tells you a lot about the Angels' struggles, the Angels' woes, and what their main focuses are. I said this last year, 5.56 ERA in your team's rotation is the worst. And it didn't get better from there. By the way, you know what summed up the 2020 season for the Angels? How about 2 batted balls over the walls by Joe Adell? It just tells you so much about the Angels and what their season had looked like this year prior to last season. And I just feel like that the longer Trout is in this organization and the longer they don't produce pitching for him to keep him out of, to get him out of innings, it's not going to look good. It's not going to look good for the Angels. That's why I don't think that Mike Trout will be able to win a World Series with this organization. I don't. So I would hope the absolute best for him. Do I think that the contract is worthy? Yes, but only worthy to an extent that they're driven for a championship. That's the only way really that I can think of with that. And finally, the last thought that I think is brewing up in the pot, if it is, it's interesting. I'm like looking up at this. Will the Tampa Bay Bucks win a Super Bowl? My gut feeling is pretty hot. The pot is definitely hot on this one. Tampa Bay, and I'm not going off of Tom Brady or any of this other stuff. Tampa Bay's offense with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk, OJ Howard, Cameron Brate, a lot of these things. So, but the defensive side of things, I mean, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, these guys here and their linebacking core have looked really, really good. The secondaries have really shaped themselves up very well. This is an interesting team in the NFC that the NFC are full of grinders. These, that's just the type of conference they are. In the AFC, you got a bunch of offensive centric pieces, but at that same time, you look at how Tampa Bay plays their game, which I think that they're going to win this week, but the run game is really good. Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, and Keyshawn Vaughn. This is a type of team that really built itself. Now, it felt like they were super lax in week 1. But of course, with no preseasons, no OTAs, it was going to be that way. But I think that they're definitely going to figure things out. And I do feel like that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may win a Super Bowl if they play to that type of extent that they're playing currently. So nothing like, something to kill a little bit of time here, but I do think those are some interesting possibilities. But I like it. I absolutely like it. I'll probably do something like this soon. But not a bad way to kill time. But all right, that's going to conclude this show of the Snake Sports Talk Show. I really do appreciate all of you guys who jumped on. Hope you guys have a great weekend and a great week ahead. And tune in for the morning show of the NFL predictions. I will be on there. That will be live on the Spotlight Sports Network. You guys don't want to end up missing that. It's Jake the Snake Silva signing off here. Have a great Saturday and have a great weekend and week ahead. My friends, take care of yourself and stay safe, please.